Growing up, my father's company was more than just a business. It was our family legacy. Founded by my grandfather and passed down to my dad, the company had once been a thriving enterprise. But by the time I finished college, things were falling apart. Years of poor management, reckless spending, and outdated business practices had pushed it to the brink of collapse. My older brother, Adam, was supposed to be the heir to the empire. He was charming, confident, and had our father wrapped around his finger. But what he wasn't: responsible. While I was studying business and finance, preparing to help turn things around, Adam was partying in clubs, blowing through money like it was infinite, and racking up scandals that the PR team could barely contain. When I joined the company, it was clear that drastic changes were needed. Vendors weren't getting paid on time, client relationships were crumbling, and employees were jumping ship. I rolled up my sleeves and got to work. At first, my father was skeptical. "You don't have the experience, son." Adam was meant to take over. But Adam was nowhere to be found when things got tough. He'd show up for photo ops, throw around vague ideas in meetings, and then disappear to another expensive getaway. I took the hard road. I cut unnecessary costs, renegotiated supplier contracts, and personally met with longtime clients to assure them we were stabilizing. My efforts didn't go unnoticed. Profits started rising again, employees felt secure, and even investors took an interest in the company's future. It took 5 years, but I did it. What was once a failing company had now become a $150 million empire, thanks to my strategies and dedication. My father, though still hesitant, finally acknowledged my work. "You saved this company," he admitted one night, his voice heavy with reluctant pride. But despite my success, Adam was still the golden child. My father never disciplined him, never questioned his reckless lifestyle. And while I was breaking my back to keep the company afloat, Adam was still receiving the same privileges, the same respect, without doing anything to earn it. Then came the board meeting that changed everything. I had assumed it was just another routine check-in, maybe even a celebration of the company's success. Instead, I walked into a nightmare. My father stood at the head of the conference table, with Adam sitting smugly beside him. The board members, many of whom I had won over through years of hard work, looked uneasy. My father cleared his throat. "After careful consideration, I've decided that it's time for a change in leadership." I frowned. "What do you mean?" He looked me straight in the eye. "Effective immediately, Adam will be taking over as CEO." Silence filled the room. My heart stopped. Adam grinned, barely hiding his satisfaction. "No hard feelings, little bro. You did great, but it's time for the real boss to take over." I couldn't believe it. I had done everything. Saved the company, rebuilt its reputation, secured its future. And yet, I was being cast aside in favor of my playboy brother? "This is a joke, right?" I said, my voice sharp. My father shook his head. "You've done well, son. But Adam has the leadership qualities that this company needs. He understands branding, public relations." The company was growing again, stronger than ever. But despite all my efforts, I remained in my father's shadow. Adam continued living as if nothing had changed, still the golden sun in his eyes. One evening, Dad called for a family meeting. He sat in the grand leather chair in his home office, the same office where he built his empire. Adam lounged on the couch, clearly bored, while I stood with my arms crossed, already sensing something was wrong. "I've made a decision," Dad started, looking between us. "It's time to name a new CEO. I won't be able to manage things forever." I straightened, feeling a flicker of hope. After everything I had done, surely he would recognize my work. But then, Dad's next words shattered any illusions I had. "Adam will be taking over as CEO." I blinked, thinking I misheard. Adam, who had never lifted a finger to help the company. Adam, who had run his personal finances into the ground multiple times. He was being rewarded while I, the one who saved everything, was cast aside? Adam smirked, barely suppressing his glee. "Don't look so shocked, bro," he said. "Dad knows I've got the vision for the future." "Vision?" I scoffed. "You don't even know how to read a financial statement. You've been living off company money for years." Dad raised a hand. "Enough. I know you've worked hard, but Adam has the leadership skills to take this company forward. You'll stay on as COO, of course. It's not a demotion. It's just how things need to be. Just how things need to be. I felt like the room was spinning. Every late night, every sacrifice, every moment I spent fighting for this company. It had all been for nothing. I should have known. No matter what I did, Dad would always choose Adam. I took a deep breath, forcing myself to stay calm. Fine. If that's your decision, I'll respect it. But don't expect me to clean up Adam's mess when he inevitably screws this up. Dad frowned, clearly not liking my tone, but Adam just laughed. Relax, little brother. You can keep playing in the background while I take things to the next level. I clenched my fists but said nothing more. Let him have his moment. Because what they didn't know was that I had already taken precautions. Before Dad had even considered stepping down, I had begun preparing for this exact scenario. I had spent months securing relationships with key clients, negotiating contracts that gave me control over crucial aspects of the business. I had built an entire structure they hadn't even noticed, one that didn't rely on the company itself, but on the people and partnerships that made it successful. So if Adam thought he was about to take over my hard work and ride it to glory, he was in for a rude awakening. And as I walked out of that office, a quiet smirk forming on my lips, I knew one thing for certain. The game had just begun. The morning of the big shareholder meeting, I had a strange feeling in my gut. For years, I had poured everything into the company. Long nights, relentless negotiations, and strategic decisions that turned a dying business into a thriving empire. And yet, despite all my efforts, something felt off. I arrived at the office, walking past employees who had once looked at me with admiration. Lately, their eyes held uncertainty. My father had been avoiding me, and Adam, my brother, had been unusually smug. The meeting was set in our largest conference room, a grand space with a long mahogany table where major decisions were made. The board members took their seats, and I noticed my father sitting at the head, a serious expression on his face. Adam sat beside him, smirking. The CFO began with financial reports, highlighting the company's impressive growth over the last few years. My contributions were evident in every chart, every figure. And then, my father spoke. "We have a major announcement today," he said, his voice steady but lacking warmth. "The company is entering a new era, and we believe it's time for fresh leadership." My heart pounded. Effective immediately, Adam will be assuming the role of CEO. A stunned silence filled the room. My hands clenched into fists under the table. "Excuse me?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. "You're appointing Adam as CEO?" Adam leaned back in his chair, feigning innocence. "Come on, brother. It's time for a change. You've been great, but the company needs someone with vision." I turned to my father. "Dad, you know how much work I've put into this company. Adam hasn't done a fraction of what I have. He barely understands the business." My father exhaled, looking down as if he couldn't meet my gaze. "This isn't personal. It's about family." "Family?" I repeated, my voice laced with disbelief. "I've sacrificed everything for this company, and you're handing it over to him because of bloodlines, not competence?" Adam chuckled. "Relax, you're still part of the company. Well, technically." He pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. "You're being let go. Effective today." A rush of murmurs filled the room. I grabbed the folder and flipped through the pages. Legal jargon, termination clauses, and a severance package that was laughably small considering the wealth I had generated for the company. I looked up at my father. "You're really doing this? After everything?" He hesitated. "You'll land on your feet." Rage and betrayal boiled inside me. They expected me to accept this and walk away quietly, but they had no idea what I had planned. Taking a deep breath, I slowly pushed my chair back and stood. "Fine," I said, forcing calm into my voice. "If that's the decision you're making, then so be it." Adam grinned, thinking he had one. What he didn't know was that I had been preparing for this moment for months. I had control of key patents, had built strong relationships with top clients, and held legal ownership of some of the company's most critical assets. If Adam thought he could run this empire without me, he was about to get the shock of his life. Because this wasn't the end. It was just the beginning. As the dust settled after my forced departure from the company I built, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to let Adam and my father win. They had stripped me of my position, my years of hard work, and the company I had turned into a $150 million empire. But what they didn't realize was that I had anticipated their betrayal. While Adam basked in his new role as CEO, throwing extravagant parties and making terrible business decisions, I was setting my plan in motion. I had spent years cultivating relationships with our biggest clients, investors, and key employees. Many of them knew Adam was incompetent and only held their trust in the company because of me. So, when I reached out to them after my firing, they were more than willing to listen. The first step of my plan was simple. Take away everything that made the company valuable. I had been meticulous over the years, ensuring that key contracts, patents, and business relationships had my personal touch. While my father had technically owned the company, it was my leadership that kept it afloat. I started by negotiating with our top clients, offering them an opportunity to shift their contracts to a new entity, one I had quietly established months before I was ousted. Since they trusted me, many of them agreed without hesitation. Adam, too blinded by his newfound power, didn't even notice that the company was slowly bleeding. His focus was on showing off his status, spending money recklessly, and trying to prove that he was a better leader than me. But the numbers never lie. Inside sources told me that the company's profits were plummeting. Investors were getting nervous, and employees were starting to realize that under Adam's leadership, the company was headed for disaster. The once thriving empire was becoming a sinking ship. And the best part? My father, the man who had favored Adam at every turn, refused to see it. Then came the second phase of my plan, exposing the truth. I had quietly gathered evidence of Adam's financial irresponsibility, his reckless spending, and even some questionable dealings he had conducted behind closed doors. While I had been in charge, I had worked hard to ensure transparency and stability. Adam, on the other hand, had turned the company into his personal playground. With the help of some loyal former colleagues, I leaked this information to the board and key stakeholders. Once the truth started spreading, it was only a matter of time before the media caught on. Headlines screamed of mismanagement, investor lawsuits, and financial disaster. Adam, who had once been untouchable, was now scrambling to defend himself. And my father? He was finally forced to confront the reality of his mistake. I'll never forget the phone call. His voice, once filled with confidence and authority, was now shaky and uncertain. "We need to talk," he said. "The company, things aren't going well." I let the silence stretch before answering. "I'm not surprised. You need to come back. Help fix this mess." A part of me had been waiting for this moment, for him to finally acknowledge my worth. But I had moved past seeking his approval. "I already have a company," I told him. "One that's thriving. One that values me." He sighed heavily. "Son, I made a mistake. I see that now. But this is your legacy too." I almost laughed. My legacy? The legacy he had thrown away the moment he chose Adam over me? No, my legacy wasn't the company I had been forced to build for someone else. My legacy was what I was building now, on my terms. "I'm done," I said firmly. "I'm not coming back." As I hung up, a wave of satisfaction washed over me. The company was crumbling, Adam's reputation was in shambles, and my father was left with nothing but regret. And me? I was finally free. With everything falling into place, I knew it was time for the next stage of my plan. My brother Adam had taken everything I built and run it straight into the ground. The company, which once thrived under my leadership, was now struggling to stay afloat under his reckless decisions. Employees were quitting, major clients were backing out, and shareholders were beginning to question his competency. I had spent months preparing for this exact moment. The only thing left was to push him off the edge and let him fall on his own. One of the biggest contracts the company had relied on was with a major tech firm, Titan Innovations. I had personally nurtured that relationship for years, ensuring they remained one of our strongest partners. But Adam, in his arrogance, took them for granted, increasing rates and cutting corners in service quality. Titan Innovations was already unhappy, and I was about to give them the final reason they needed to jump ship. I arranged a private meeting with their executives under the guise of discussing a new opportunity. What they didn't know was that I had secured a deal with another firm that was more than willing to match our services. Only this time, under my own company's name. I laid out everything. Adam's mismanagement, his arrogance, and the inevitable collapse of the company. The executives, already frustrated, saw the writing on the wall. By the end of the meeting, they had agreed to sever their ties with Adam's company and sign on with me instead. Losing Titan Innovations meant an immediate and massive financial blow to the business, one that Adam wouldn't recover from. The news broke within a week. Adam was blindsided. The shareholders were furious. In a desperate attempt to fix things, he scheduled an emergency meeting, hoping to shift the blame onto someone else. Anyone else. I made sure to be there. The boardroom was tense, filled with anxious investors and executives who were losing confidence by the second. Adam stood at the front, attempting to justify the losses, pointing fingers, making excuses. Then, one of the shareholders turned to me. "You built this company into what it was. What's your take on this, considering you were forced out?" I leaned forward, locking eyes with Adam. "I think the numbers speak for themselves," I said calmly. I left, and the company crumbled. Adam made sure of that. There was silence. Adam's face turned red with fury. "You set this up, didn't you?" he spat. "You wanted this to happen." I chuckled, leaning back in my chair. "No, Adam. You did this to yourself. All I did was give people an alternative." The room erupted into arguments, with the board demanding answers, calling for an audit, and questioning Adam's leadership. I had planted the seed of doubt, and now it was growing into full-blown chaos. That night, as I left the office building, my phone buzzed with a message from an old friend, one of the board members. "You might want to keep an eye on the news tomorrow. Things are about to get worse for Adam." I smirked. The final blow was coming, and I was going to enjoy every second of it. The moment I stepped out of the boardroom, I knew there was no turning back. Adam and my father had pushed me out of the company I built, humiliated me, and thought they had one. But they didn't realize that I had been preparing for this moment long before they made their move. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from Jenna, my most trusted advisor and the CFO of the new company I had quietly established over the past year. "Jenna, everything is in place. Just give the word." I took a deep breath and typed back, "Do it." The plan was already in motion. Over the past several months, I had been securing all the company's key assets under my name. The patents, the client contracts, and even the proprietary technology that made our business so valuable. All of it had been quietly moved into a separate holding company that I controlled. Without these crucial components, Adam's new role as CEO was nothing more than a title without power. Just as I reached the parking lot, my father's voice echoed behind me. "Wait," he called, rushing toward me. "We need to talk." I turned to face him, keeping my expression unreadable. "About what?" "This is business, son," he said, as if that justified everything. "You should understand that by now." "Business?" I repeated with a cold laugh. "You let Adam waltz in, take credit for my work, and throw me out like trash. What part of that is good business?" His jaw tightened. "Adam is family, just like you. He has potential. You need to let him prove himself." I shook my head. "No, what you mean is, you needed someone to protect, and it was never going to be me. Adam has failed over and over, but you keep bailing him out. You didn't think I'd fight back?" My father exhaled sharply. "You're making a mistake by walking away." I smirked. "You think I'm walking away?" "No, Dad. I'm taking everything with me." His face paled, but he masked it quickly. "What do you mean?" I checked my phone. Jenna had sent another message. "Jenna, the contracts have been pulled. Clients are already calling Adam. He's panicking." I gave my father a knowing look. "You're about to find out." Just as I finished speaking, Adam stormed out of the building, his phone clutched in his shaking hand. "What the hell did you do?" he bellowed. "The contracts, our biggest clients. Why are they pulling out?" I crossed my arms. "They're not your clients anymore. They're mine." Adam's face contorted with rage. "You can't do that." "I can," I said calmly. "And I did. You see, while you were busy partying and spending company money like it was your personal piggy bank, I was securing our real assets. The clients trust me, not you. And they're not going to stick around while you run this company into the ground. Adam turned to my father in desperation. Dad, fix this. But for the first time, my father didn't have an answer. He looked between me and Adam, realization dawning in his eyes. You planned this, he murmured. You knew we'd do this to you. I nodded. Of course I did. Because I know you, Dad. And I know Adam. You both thought I'd just roll over. But I built this company. And now, I'll build something even bigger. Adam's face twisted with fury, but there was nothing he could do. I had one. The empire they stole from me was crumbling, and they were the ones left with nothing. I turned to leave, feeling lighter than I had in years. And for the first time, I didn't look back. As I walked away from my father and Adam, I felt an odd sense of relief. Years of being overlooked, underappreciated, and treated as disposable were finally over. They had underestimated me, and now they were facing the consequences of their betrayal. But I wasn't done yet. My phone rang again. It was Jenna. You're going to want to hear this, she said, her voice laced with amusement. The board is in chaos. Investors are threatening to pull out unless Adam and your father find a way to recover the contracts. And guess what? They have no way to do that. I chuckled. Let them sweat. They thought they could throw me away like an old piece of furniture. Now, they're realizing they lost the one person holding everything together. Jenna hesitated for a moment. There's something else. Adam's been making calls, desperate ones. He reached out to some of our biggest clients, trying to negotiate deals under the table. I smirked. And they're not biting. You were the face they trusted, not him. In fact, one of them, Mr. Caldwell, just signed an exclusive contract with us. He said, and I quote, I'd rather set my money on fire than let Adam manage it. I laughed. Caldwell had been one of our company's biggest clients for years. Losing him was going to hurt Adam's credibility even more than I thought. Good. Keep everything running smoothly on our end. I want them to see just how quickly we're growing while they scramble to fix a sinking ship. You got it, Jenna said. Also, I forwarded you an email. You'll want to take a look. After hanging up, I checked my inbox. The email was from a former board member, one of the few who had supported me before Adam and my father staged their takeover. The message was short but powerful. I made a mistake siding with them. If you're open to a discussion, I'd like to talk. I tapped my fingers against the phone, considering my next move. It was only a matter of time before more people jumped ship. Adam and my father had spent years coasting off my hard work, believing loyalty could be bought or forced. But true loyalty came from respect, and that was something neither of them had ever understood. I replied simply, let's meet. Just as I hit send, another call came through. This time, it was my mother. I sighed before answering. Hello? Your father is furious, she said immediately. What are you doing? Taking back what's mine, I said, my tone even. You and Dad always thought Adam was the golden child. Now you're seeing what happens when you put the wrong person in charge. He's still your brother, she said, her voice wavering. No, Mom. He's just another businessman now. And in business, there are consequences for bad decisions. She sighed heavily. You know your father won't just let this go. I know, I said, glancing at my phone as another message came in. This one from a reporter asking for a comment on the company's sudden collapse. But I'm ready for whatever he throws my way. As I hung up, I looked back at the towering office building one last time. The company I had poured my blood, sweat, and tears into was no longer mine. But that didn't matter, because now I was building something even greater. The moment I stepped out of the boardroom, I knew there was no turning back. Adam and my father had pushed me out of the company I built, humiliated me, and thought they had one. But they didn't realize that I had been preparing for this moment long before they made their move. My phone buzzed in my pocket. It was a message from Jenna, my most trusted advisor and the CFO of the new company I had quietly established over the past year. Jenna, everything is in place. Just give the word. I took a deep breath and typed back, do it. The plan was already in motion. Over the past several months, I had been securing all the company's key assets under my name. The patents, the client contracts, and even the proprietary technology that made our business so valuable. All of it had been quietly moved into a separate holding company that I controlled. Without these crucial components, Adam's new role as CEO was nothing more than a title without power. Just as I reached the parking lot, my father's voice echoed behind me. "Wait," he called, rushing toward me. "We need to talk." I turned to face him, keeping my expression unreadable. "About what?" "This is business, son," he said, as if that justified everything. "You should understand that by now." "Business?" I repeated with a cold laugh. "You let Adam waltz in, take credit for my work, and throw me out like trash. What part of that is good business?" His jaw tightened. "Adam is family, just like you. He has potential. You need to let him prove himself." I shook my head. "No, what you mean is, you needed someone to protect, and it was never going to be me. Adam has failed over and over, but you keep bailing him out. You didn't think I'd fight back?" My father exhaled sharply. "You're making a mistake by walking away." I smirked. "You think I'm walking away?" "No, Dad. I'm taking everything with me." His face paled, but he masked it quickly. "What do you mean?" I checked my phone. Jenna had sent another message. "Jenna, the contracts have been pulled. Clients are already calling Adam. He's panicking." I gave my father a knowing look. "You're about to find out." Just as I finished speaking, Adam stormed out of the building, his phone clutched in his shaking hand. "What the hell did you do?" he bellowed. "The contracts, our biggest clients. Why are they pulling out?" I crossed my arms. "They're not your clients anymore. They're mine." Adam's face contorted with rage. "You can't do that." "I can," I said calmly. "And I did. You see, while you were busy partying and spending company money like it was your personal piggy bank, I was securing our real assets. The clients trust me, not you. And they're not going to stick around while you run this company into the ground." Adam turned to my father in desperation. "Dad, fix this." But for the first time, my father didn't have an answer. He looked between me and Adam, realization dawning in his eyes. "You planned this," he murmured. "You knew we'd do this to you." I nodded. "Of course I did. Because I know you, Dad. And I know Adam. You both thought I'd just roll over. But I built this company. And now, I'll build something even bigger." Adam's face twisted with fury, but there was nothing he could do. I had one. The empire they stole from me was crumbling, and they were the ones left with nothing. I turned to leave, feeling lighter than I had in years. And for the first time, I didn't look back. A week later, the fallout was even worse than I had expected. My former company was hemorrhaging money. The clients who had once been the backbone of the business had all signed exclusive contracts with my new firm. Adam was struggling to maintain control, but he was drowning. Investors were pulling out, and the stock price was plummeting. Then, I got an unexpected call. My father. I debated letting it go to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello?" "We need to talk," he said, his voice unusually subdued. I leaned back in my chair. "About what?" "You know damn well about what. The company is collapsing. Adam is in over his head." I smiled to myself. "Sounds like a personal problem." "Don't be like this," he snapped. "We can fix this together. Come back, take your rightful place. I'll make sure Adam steps down." I let his words sink in. The irony was delicious. After all the years of being overlooked, undervalued, and tossed aside, now he wanted me back. Now that Adam had failed, now I was suddenly important again. "No," I said simply. "No?" he repeated, disbelief in his voice. "You made your choice, Dad. You chose Adam. You let him humiliate me, fire me, take everything I worked for. Now you can live with that decision." He was silent for a long moment. Then, with a defeated sigh, he said, "You'll regret this." I chuckled. "No, Dad. The only people regretting anything right now are you and Adam." And with that, I hung up. For the first time in my life, I was free from their shadow, and I was just getting started. My company was thriving. Within weeks, we had taken over most of the key contracts that once belonged to my father's company. The final nail in the coffin came when our biggest investor, a longtime supporter of my work, withdrew their funding from Adam's company and moved it to mine. Without that money, they had no way to recover. Then, the news broke. Adam's company was filing for bankruptcy. The media had a field day. Headlines exposed the nepotism, the reckless spending, and the massive corporate exodus. Adam had become a laughingstock, and my father's once great empire was in ruins. I received one last call from my father, but I didn't answer this time. I had nothing left to say. Instead, I sat in my office, looking out at the skyline, knowing that I had built something even greater than what they had stolen from me. And this time, it was mine alone.